This is the first lesson for PowerShell scripting. In this lesson, we'll do the PowerShell overview presentation and give you the necessary knowledge and tools to do the first lab. The presentation and lab instructions are on the GitHub website. The presentation is in PDF form. We'll just scroll through it in the presentation. If we right-click on it, we'll be able to open it in a new window or tab. I'll just put it in a new tab. We'll wait a moment for that to load. There are 29 slides, it says. We're just going to scroll through them. The first couple of slides in this presentation cover off checking your host version and making sure you're running the right one. This was covered in the previous video, so we'll just quickly review to make sure you did get that done before we begin. As we said, we're going to be using Windows PowerShell, version 5.1 or better, but still in the major version number 5. We used the get host command to see the PowerShell version. To use that command, we had to start PowerShell. I suggested that you pin it to your taskbar. When you run get host, you get a number of output items, including the version number. That version number actually has 4 numbers embedded in it. The version itself is a property of the host object, specifically the console host. The first 2 numbers are the major and minor revision numbers, in this case 5.1, and that is fine for this course. As long as it is 5 for the major version, it's good enough for this course. If you don't have that, you'll need to update. We mentioned playing with PowerShell Core 6. You can certainly do so. It does have a different command to run it, pwsh. If you're on Windows with PowerShell Core, you can still simply type in PowerShell and it will find PowerShell 6. And if you run PowerShell 6, you'll see the window looks different in color, if nothing else, but also it gives a link to some PowerShell Core 6 documents, which the other PowerShell does not give you. PowerShell Core 6 is still quite new, and while it works, it doesn't have anywhere near the wealth of commands available that PowerShell Core 5 has. We won't be using PowerShell Core 6 in this course. The slide describes the GitHub setup as optional. By optional, this means there are no marks for setting up GitHub to do PowerShell. I urge you to set it up. It is the recommended backup mechanism for the files that you're going to make in this course. And if you do not make one and something happens to your files, that is not going to be accepted as a reason for not having your work done by the deadline. If your work is not done by the deadline, which is the start of the final exam, your work will not be accepted. It is strongly recommended that you do each week's lab the week that the presentation material is given for that lab. Do not delay. Show your work on a lab to me the next week when you come in. Don't leave it for the end of the semester. You can show me your work on GitHub, or you can show me your work running on your laptop, but either way you must show me your work in person, and you may be asked some questions about what is in the work and what it does. To put the files in your GitHub account, we created a repository for this course already. And the repository for this course, I recommended you call Comp 2101. And you'll begin by cloning that repository to your PC. You won't be doing it to a lab PC this semester. None of the rooms that we are teaching this class in this semester have lab PCs. When you make your changes to your labs and they're complete and you're done working on a script, make sure that you push your changes to GitHub so that it has current copies of your files. Create your scripts in the PowerShell folder that you'll put in your GitHub clone or your local copy of the files on the PC, and keep it synchronized. There are Git command line tools for Windows. You can use git add, commit, and push, just like you could in Linux, or you can use the Git desktop tool. I'm going to be using the Git desktop tool in my demonstrations. You'll get to see how that works. To reiterate, our repository currently has a bash folder and a README file. We're going to be making a new folder at the top level called PowerShell, where we can put the files we make for PowerShell. You can make that folder on the website, or you can make it on your local machine after cloning. I'm going to do it after cloning when we get to the stage where we're ready to create a file. So all I'm going to do with it right now is connect to GitHub with the desktop tool and clone that repository. I already downloaded and installed the GitHub desktop tool. It is on my desktop. We're going to be choosing to clone a repository from the internet on github.com, which requires us to sign into our GitHub account. So you'll use your GitHub account email address or your GitHub username. And of course your GitHub password. Once you sign in, it will present you a list of your repositories, and you'll be able to access those. I've put in the wrong email address, so I'll simply do it again. If you can't remember your access, but it's saved in your browser, there is a link to sign in with the browser instead. You'll still have to sign in somewhere, whether it's in this tool or the browser. There's only one repository in this account. You may have only one in yours as well. We select the repository and choose to clone it. It will let us choose where to put the copy. It will by default put it under the Documents directory in your home folder, and the name of the subfolder will be the name of the repository. Chances are you have more than just this in your Documents folder. You may choose to create a folder called GitHub in your Documents folder and put the cloned files in a repository name underneath that. Cloning will copy down the files you already have, including all of your bash files. It doesn't hurt to have them there. The bash files are fairly small. And it keeps life simple for you because you only need to have the one repository with the one set of files in it. It says it is done. On the left-hand edge of the tool, it'll tell us our current repository. If you eventually have more than one, you'll wind up with a list here if you clone more than one, and you can choose which one to work in by picking a repository from the list. If you look at the History tab, you'll see what's been going on in your repository, and up to this stage in ours, it will only be bash file activities. The Changes tab shows us any files that we are trying to work on. So this is similar to the Staged and Unstaged Files tab from the Atom tool under Linux. The current branch will be master, just like we used in the Atom tool on Linux. We aren't going to change that, leave it on the master. And the Fetch Origin button is the multi-purpose button used to send your updates to GitHub, to retrieve updates from GitHub that are not on the local machine, and to make sure that you have a current version to work with. We have made no changes, none show up on our list. We'll revisit this again when the time comes.